A 62-year-old engineer I worked with had enough money to retire. He had $1.4 million saved, a paid-off house, and zero debt. He worked 4 more years anyway, out of fear. But here's the twist. Those 4 years didn't make him safer. They cost him roughly 10 years of healthy, mobile retirement he'll never get back. And most people make this exact mistake without ever realizing they've made it. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you the framework I use to tell a client with real confidence whether they're actually ready to retire or whether they're just afraid. I've been a CPA for over 25 years, and I've reviewed retirement readiness for well over 1,000 clients, including dozens who delayed retirement for reasons that, looking back, didn't hold up. Here's what most people miss. The cost of retiring too late is invisible. There's no statement, no line item. It just shows up as years you didn't get to spend the way you wanted. So, today, I'm walking you through 7 reasons people make this mistake and how to know if you're making it right now. Drop a comment letting me know how close you are to retirement. Let's dive in. The healthy years clock. Nobody tells you about CDC data shows the average American's healthy life expectancy, the years lived without significant chronic limitation, runs roughly a decade shorter than total life expectancy. That means the window for hiking, traveling, and doing the physically active things people picture when they imagine retirement is narrower than most people plan around. I had a client, a retired contractor named Gary, who pushed his retirement back 3 years to build a bigger cushion. In year 2 of that delay, a knee injury limited the kind of travel he and his wife had been planning for 15 years. The money was never the problem. The clock was. The takeaway: your healthy years and your retirement savings are 2 separate countdowns, and only one of them can be extended by working longer. And that's the part nobody talks about. The next reason people delay is the one that sounds the most responsible and is often the least justified. The 1 more year trap. A well-documented pattern in retirement research shows that people who are financially ready to retire frequently delay anyway, telling themselves it's just 1 more year for safety. Now, I'm not saying caution is bad. I'm saying this particular form of caution rarely has an end date. I've watched 1 more year turn into 4, 5, sometimes 7 because the underlying fear was never actually resolved by the extra savings. I had a client, a retired attorney named Patricia, who said 1 more year for 3 years running. Each year, her portfolio had grown. Each year, she found a new reason it still wasn't enough. We finally ran the numbers together in detail, and she retired that fall, 4 years later than her own plan had originally called for. The actionable piece: if you've said 1 more year more than once, that's not a financial signal. That's a sign you need a number on paper that defines enough, not a feeling. Here's where it gets interesting. The math behind enough surprises almost everyone who actually runs it. The 4% rule and the real math of enough. The widely cited 4% withdrawal guideline suggests that if your annual expenses are covered by 4% of your portfolio, you can reasonably sustain that withdrawal rate for roughly 30 years. On a $1.5 million portfolio, that's $60,000 a year. Add Social Security, and many retirees are far closer to enough than they believe. I had a client, a retired nurse named Beverly, who assumed she needed $2.5 million to retire because that's the number she'd heard from a coworker. When we actually mapped her expenses against her $1.6 million portfolio and her Social Security benefit, she had a comfortable surplus and had been working 2 extra years against a number that was never actually hers. The takeaway: enough is a calculation specific to your expenses, not a round number borrowed from someone else's plan. Stay with me because this matters, and the next mistake isn't about money at all, and it's the one I see most often: identity fear, disguised as financial caution. People frequently tell their advisor they're delaying retirement for financial reasons, when the underlying hesitation is about identity, not knowing who they are without the job title. This shows up constantly in client conversations, even though almost nobody names it directly in the first meeting. I had a client, a retired sales executive named Mark, who kept finding new financial objections to retiring. Objections that didn't survive scrutiny when we ran the numbers. Eventually, he admitted the real issue. He didn't know what he'd do with his mornings. Once he had an actual plan for his time, not just his money, he retired within 6 months. The actionable piece: if every financial objection you raise gets answered and a new one appears, the obstacle probably isn't financial. Plan your time before you plan your withdrawal rate. But that's not the worst part. The next factor actively works against you the longer you wait. Working longer doesn't always mean saving more. There's an assumption that every extra year worked is a year of pure financial gain. It isn't always. Many retirement age workers are in their peak expense years too, supporting adult children, paying higher healthcare premiums, sometimes caring for aging parents, which quietly offsets the extra income from working longer. I had a client, a retired IT manager named Steve, who delayed retirement for 2 more years of savings. When we reviewed his actual numbers afterward, the net increase to his portfolio was less than half of what he'd assumed, once we accounted for what those 2 years had actually cost him in expenses he hadn't tracked. The takeaway: before you delay retirement for the money, calculate the actual net gain. Not the gross income, the net gain, because it's often smaller than it feels. It happened to Gary. It happened to Steve. It's happening to someone watching this right now. The Social Security timing trade-off. The Social Security Administration's own figures show that delaying benefits from age 62 to age 70 increases your monthly payment by roughly 77%, which leads many people to assume delaying everything. Retirement and benefits together is always the right move. Here's what most people miss. You can retire and delay claiming Social Security at the same time, drawing instead from savings in the interim. Retirement and benefit timing are 2 separate decisions, not one. I had a client, a retired electrician named Ron, who believed he had to keep working until 70 because that's when you're supposed to take Social Security. Once we separated the 2 decisions, he retired at 64, funded the gap years from his portfolio, and still delayed his claim to 70 for the higher benefit. The actionable piece: don't let your Social Security claiming strategy dictate your retirement date. They can move independently of each other. Here's what happens next, and it's the most expensive mistake on this list. The RMD and tax bracket time bomb. The IRS requires required minimum distributions from most retirement accounts starting at age 73. The longer you delay retirement, the longer your tax-deferred accounts keep growing untouched, which often means a larger RMD and a higher tax bracket once you're forced to withdraw. I had a client, a retired physician named Dr. Alvarez, who worked 5 years past the point his own advisor flagged as ready. By 73, his RMDs pushed him into a tax bracket nearly 2 levels higher than if he'd retired and begun strategic withdrawals, CHI or Roth conversions key years earlier. The takeaway: delaying retirement doesn't just cost you time. In some cases, it costs you a permanently higher tax bill on the back end for the rest of your life. So here's the framework I actually walk clients through, the one this entire video has been building toward. First mistake: confusing total life expectancy with healthy life expectancy and planning your retirement date around the wrong clock. Second mistake: treating 1 more year as a financial decision when it's almost always an emotional one, with no number attached to define enough. Third mistake: assuming Social Security timing and retirement timing have to move together, when separating them often unlocks an earlier retirement date without sacrificing the higher benefit. Here's what I want you to do right now. Write down your actual monthly expenses, multiply your portfolio by 4%, add your Social Security estimate. If that number covers your expenses with room to spare, the obstacle in front of you probably isn't math. It's fear wearing a financial disguise. That's the gap this video is meant to close. Not by telling you to retire today, but by making sure that if you're delaying for a real reason, not an invisible one. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. The years you delay retirement for safety are real years, and they don't come back, so make sure the safety you're buying is real too. If you want to find out exactly where you stand, I'd encourage you to run through the readiness checklist linked in the description below. In the next video, I'm going to walk through exactly how to calculate your real enough number, step by step, with the actual formulas I use with clients, so you can stop guessing and start deciding. If this helped you see your own timeline more clearly, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. I'll see you in the next one.